Legend of a Golden City from Lost City in A Bekkersdal Marathon by Herman Bosman. It's a queer thing though, the schoolmaster said, when you come to think of it, that so many hundreds of years, when the interior of South Africa was still unexplored, there should have been a legend of a golden city. And people were so convinced of the existence of this city that they went searching for it. They were so sure that there was that city of gold that they even marked it on their maps. And what seems so extraordinary to me is that one day the golden city actually would arise, and not too far away either from where the old geographers had, centuries before, indicated on their maps. It was as though they were all prophesying the rise of Johannesburg, and at most they were only a few 100 miles out. That men should have been able to mark on a map centuries beforehand a city that was not there yet, that to him was one of the mysteries of Africa, the schoolmaster declared. Thereupon, Opa Becker said that if it was a thing like that the schoolmaster thought wonderful, then the schoolmaster still had a lot to learn. After all, with South Africa so big, Opa Becker said, they were bound to go and build cities in it somewhere. That stands to reason. And so, for a person to go and put a mark on a map and to say that someday there is going to be a city there or thereabouts, well, what would have been wonderful was if it didn't work out sometime. And to say that it's surprising how that man made that mark on the map centuries ago even. Well, I think that only shows how bad he was at it. If Johannesburg had got started soon after he prophesied it, then there might have been something in it. But it seems to me that the man who made that map wasn't only a few 100 miles out, as Meneer Vermaak says, but that he was also a few 100 years out. What's more, he also got the name wrong. Unless you all think that name, what's it again? Monomotapa, young Vermaak announced, isn't far out from sounding like Johannesburg, Opa Becker said. It made him think of his grand-uncle Toons, all this, Opa Becker said. Now there was something that really did come as a surprise to us. The general feeling we had about Opa Becker was a feeling of immense antiquity, of green and immemorial age. In the lost olden time cities that our talk was about, we could, without thinking twice, accord to Opa Becker the rights of a venerable citizenship. And in that crumbled town, we could conceive of Opa Becker as walking about in the evening among the cobwebbed monuments. He seemed to belong with the battered, though timeless antique. It was foolish, of course, to have ideas like that. But that was the impression, in point of appearance and personality, that Oupa Becker made on us. And so, when Oupa Becker spoke of himself as having had a granduncle, it just about took our breath away. "You were saying about your granduncle," Yuri Stein, who was the first to recover, remarked. From the tone in his voice, you could hear that Yuri Stein pictured Oupa Becker's granduncle as a lost city in himself, with weeds clambering over his ruined walls. "My granduncle Toons," Oupa Becker continued, unaware of the stir he had caused, "also had the habit, when he first trekked into the Transvaal, that was all just open veld then, of stopping every so often and looking around him, and saying that one day a great city would arise, right there where he was standing, where it was now just empty veld. On his way up, when he trekked into the northern Transvaal, he stopped to say it at where there is today Potchefstroom, and also at where there is today Johannesburg and Pretoria. In that way, you could say that he was just as good as the man who did that map. And I suppose he was too. That is, if you don't count all those hundreds of other places where my granduncle Toons also stopped to say the same thing, and where there is today still just open veld." It was Yuri Stein who brought the conversation back to where we had started from. "Those expeditions going in search of the lost city," he asked of Atnodeer, "have they set out yet? And do you know if they are likely to pass this way at all? Because if it's last letters they want to send home and so on, then my post office is as good as any. I mean, their last letters have got a good chance of getting to where they are addressed to. I don't say the expeditions have got the same chance of getting to the lost city. But instead of taking all that trouble, why don't they just drop a letter in the post to the lost city, writing to the mayor, say? Then they'll at least know if the lost city is there or not." But Atnodeer said that, from what he had heard over the wireless, the expeditions were on the point of leaving or had already left Johannesburg. And as for what Yuri Stein had said about writing letters, well, he had the feeling that more than one letter that he himself had posted had ended up there, in that lost city. "Johannesburg?" Oupa Becker queried, talking as though he was emerging from a dream. "Well, I've been in Johannesburg only a few times, like with the show, say. And I've passed through there on the way to Cape Town. And I've always tried to pull down the curtains of the compartment I was in when we went through Johannesburg. And I have thought of the good book then. And I have thought that if ever there was a lost city, it was Johannesburg, I have thought. And how lost I have thought. The expedition doesn't need to leave Johannesburg. if it's a lost city that it wants.